Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fitria Wulandari, and in this opportunity, I would like to present you about my paper with the title "The Influence of Idols in Reducing Stress That Experienced by Individuals During the COVID-19 Pandemic." And here is the outline of my presentation today. First, I will start my presentation with the introduction, and then theoretical framework, and then empirical review, and research methods, findings, discussion, and finally conclusion. Now jump into the first section of this presentation about the introduction. So the novel coronavirus disease or COVID-19 pandemic is a global phenomenon that has successfully put this world into a frightening period of time. And since the first moment this virus emerged, people around the world were already feeling anxious with the situation. And not long after that, the virus had spread to most part of this world, and it led to the lockdown policy that was implemented by the government. And governmental lockdown policy aims at preventing the spread of disease, including the stay-at-home order and restriction of workplaces and site and travel bans, and it had a profound social effect that permeates about every aspect of daily life. And this situation has an impact on mental health and stress that experienced by the individuals during this pandemic. Heather Kidd and Hamilton stated that the collateral damage to human health due to such constraints has took center stage as countries begin to emerge from lockdown, and mental health, especially stress-related and outcomes became a major concern, and several studies have described the impact of pandemic on mental health and how to manage stress caused by the pandemic. But however, none of these studies analyzed the impact of idols in reducing stress that experienced by the individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. And idol itself came from the Greek word which means image or shape, and the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines idol as a representation or symbol of an object of worship or broadly a false god. And an idol is originally basically is a religious figure that is greatly admired because of his or her spiritual power. However, with the modernization and globalization around the world, an idol is readily become an admired of artist or celebrity or sports icon for his or her skills and achievement status and or physical presence. And and this paper will focus on idols who are involved in the entertainment industry, such as musicians, because the rapid growth of entertainment industry has become a global phenomenon for these past years. And one of the examples of that phenomenon is Korean Hallyu. Idolizing a Korean group is now become a trend among people in the world, and not only Korean Hollywood, but people also put their interest in Western, Japan, China, and even Thailand pop, and the impact of idols in every side of people's life is quite big. Thus, some people use their idols as an escape from reality, for example, in relieving the stress that they experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And since the pandemic became worse, mental health, especially stress, become major topic for research because almost all people in this world are experiencing it. And it is important to know how to manage stress during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we need to analyze what activity undertaken during the pandemic that can reduce stress experienced by the individuals. And this research was conducted to describe A. Stress during the COVID-19 pandemic, B. Managing stress during the pandemic, and see the impact of idols in reducing stress during the pandemic. Thus, this study addresses these following questions that guided our research, and now is the following research questions. First, what triggers what triggers stress during the COVID-19 pandemic? The second, how to manage stress during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the third research question is what impact idols have when reducing stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we jump into the theoretical framework. First theoretical framework is stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. Stress is a condition experienced by an individual when they are facing a difficult situation. And according to McCandom and Cameron, stress is divided into several forms depending on the characteristics on the individuals who feel it and the ability to deal with it are known as the coping skills and the nature of the stressor it faces. And there is no doubt that COVID-19 pandemic is a difficult situation for most people and it could lead to stress because of the fear and the anxiety for ourselves and our loved ones becoming infected with the virus. The lockdown policy also added another factor to the stress because of the uncertainty about how socially and economically the pandemic will affect us. And the situation is also hard for students because they cannot study normally, and those massive changes reflect major sources of population stress and will have effects on future mental health and physical health. Now, the second theoretical framework is entertainment industry as strategy in managing stress. It thus concerns about it is important to find strategies in managing stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many people doing something they like as a way to cope with stress that they experience, for example, listening to music. And according to Thomas Labarca, Doniman, Finkel, Aher, and Natler's paper, psychological stress mechanism has been influenced by music listening, and prior to standardized stressor, listening to music mainly affected the autonomic nervous system in terms of faster recovery and the response to endocrine and psychological stress to smaller extent. Nowadays, people in their 20s get an interest into Western pop, Korean pop, Japanese pop, Chinese pop, and even Thailand pop. Listening to music or watching videos from their idol might be a way to cope with stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. And now about the empirical review, there are two journals that will be compared in this study as a reference for this research. The first journal is titled The Effect of Music on the Human Stress Response, written by Tonya Lamarca, Journeyman, Finkel, and Nature, which stated that music listening is one of the ways to impact health via stress-reducing effects. And listening to music has been suggested to have a positive health influence by stress-reducing effects. And the goal of the research is to deeply explore music effects of the reaction to human stress through endocrine, autonomic, cognitive, and emotional domains. In brief, the results from the present study indicate that listening to calming music before a stress task has a distinct effect on the domain of biological stress response. And the second journal is titled Managing Stress During the COVID-19 Pandemic and Beyond, written by Hager, Ketch, and Hamilton, which discussed about how stress reprisal provide a potentially effective cost-efficient approach to reduce stress related to pandemics and reduce health effects. Um, Based on these journals above, the one that is more related to this research is the first journal titled The Effect of Music on the Human Stress Response, in which the journal discussed about music listening as one of the ways to impact health via stress-reducing effects, and furthermore, it can be used as a reference in this research because it is not related to this research. And about the research method, a qualitative case study design was chosen to analyze the impact of idols in reducing stress that's experienced by individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. And an interview through online platform called Zoom with a total of three participants has been conducted, and it consists of three people in their 20s with an interest in music and who are in the area of COVID-19. And the questions for the interview was composed of five questions in which the participant had to answer it truthfully. And the first participant is a woman who has an interest in Korean Idol. The second participant is a woman who has an interest in Western Idol. And the third participant is a man who has an interest in music in general. And the interview for each participation, participation was lasted for around 8 minutes and more. And now we will discuss about the findings. And there are five findings in this research. The first one is stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. The participants generally answered that during the COVID-19 pandemic, they indeed suffered with stress. The first and third participant had experienced stress even before the pandemic, and that's why the current situation of this pandemic has increased their stress level. And the form of stress that they experience is different but very similar to each other. One of the participants remarked that during pandemic like this, she often experiences stress and she often feels tired because of many tasks during this pandemic. And also during this pandemic, she couldn't go anywhere and had to stay at home. So she was quite bored and it could trigger her stress. Besides that, she also lacked enthusiasm in carrying her daily activities and she also became less motivated in studying because lectures during this pandemic were conducted online. And the second finding is the, the trigger of stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. Overall, it can be said that all of the participants had a trigger of their stress, and the trigger is not too different from each other because mostly about the pressure of college life and feeling trapped at home for a long time and personal problem. And based on those, it can be said that the trigger mostly came from college life, the frustration of staying at home for too long, and also personal matters. And one of the participants said that the things that trigger stress are because people can only be at home, so the trigger starts from college because college now can be done offline, so it's conducted online. And this online lecture is ineffective and it is added to the filling up of assignments and ineffective material delivered. So sometimes he didn't understand and cannot do his task with many deadlines. So that becomes the biggest trigger that makes him stress. And besides that, social life also suddenly changed because he usually hang out with his friends. And however, during this pandemic, he just stay at home and don't hang out and rarely talk to friends so that his social life becomes disturbed. And the third is personal problem that added stress triggers. And the third findings is stress management. And every participant answered this question with their own way to manage stress, but still very close to each other because during the pandemic there is nothing that we can do, and everybody has their own way to cope with stress, and so did the participant of this interview. However, they had one similar way that is going to be highlighted, which is listening to music from their idol. One of the participants said that what usually do to reduce stress during a pandemic is to read comics, like reading a webtoon. Then she usually read novels, watch movies, and sometimes also exercise with her parents, like jogging. And besides that, she often listens to music from her favorite singer, which is Shawn Mendes. And sometimes after studying or having some free time, she also streams Shawn Mendes' performance on YouTube. And the next findings is positive impacts of idols in reducing the stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. All participants agree that idols in fact have a positive impact in reducing the stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the participants said that the positive effects of idols can be seen mainly from their songs, from their videos. In here, she mentioned about Korean idol, BTS, where from the lyrics, from message on the video, or from the way they motivate their fans, it really means a lot, even though they are stretched apart and don't see each other directly, but they feel like a person that gives a message to their fans, and they feel special, and it definitely motivates their fans. So in her opinion, it is BTS as her idol really played a lot in her life, especially during this pandemic where they gave strength to her, so she's still motivated and excited to live her life. For example, they just released an album. On that album, there's a song called "Life Goes On," where the song is like telling their fans and everyone how we should continue living our life despite many problems, and she thinks that they are good to be able to give positive message to their fans. And the last findings is the role of idols in reducing stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. The majority of the participants claim that the role of idols in reducing the stress during the COVID-19 pandemic is pretty big. And the first participant, admin, and one of the participants said that idols have many roles where they play a role in helping her and accompanying her during this pandemic. And it is certain that during this pandemic, we feel like we are trapped at home, and the smartest thing at their agency is they make an online streaming concert, and she thinks that it's very good and creative to make something like that, where it can be a distraction from her from the stress that she experienced, where she can take a break or stop for a moment for existing fatigue, existing, and she'll run to them to be happy first so she can continue what she has to do, like she has to continue learning and she has to focus again on her exhausting real life, and reducing the stress is by the idols. It's not like the stress is immediately gone, but we as a humans must also feel insecure in all kinds, and idols serve to be the motivation whenever they feel down like that, it can be said that they become a safe place and an escape for their fans. And now about the discussion. This research was conducted to show that the influence of idols in reducing stress that experienced by individuals during COVID-19 pandemic is quite remarkable. From the interview, it shows that idols give a positive impact in reducing the stress that experienced by the individuals during this pandemic because of the current situation where everyone ordered to stay at home and there's nothing much that we can do. The stress level that experienced by the individual is increased. So it's not a surprise that this pandemic lead people to experience the stress or even worsen the stress that they already had before this pandemic. And the trigger of the stress also come from a lot of factors. However, people around their 20s, based on the study, um, experiencing the stress that come from the pressure of college life, and the second factor is the frustration that came from being locked up at home for too long, so it could damage social life and also cause conflict between family members or friends. And the third factor is personal problems. Personal problems added to stress, especially during this pandemic, because human interaction is limited. And based on the research that was conducted, there's nothing much people can do as way to manage stress because people are limited to go outside. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a way to relieve the stress can be found in watching movies, playing games, reading a book, exercising, and also listening to music from their idols. Idol gives a positive influence in reducing the stress that experienced by individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. Through their music, lyrics, video, it can be a motivation for their friends to continue doing what they need to do, especially during this pandemic, where people need an encouragement for someone, and the encouragement from their idols really help them to get through the situation and to reduce stress that they experience. It can be said that the role of idols in reducing the stress experienced by the individual during the COVID-19 pandemic is pretty impactful. Idle act as a distraction from the stress that people experience because in that way that can take a break and stop for a moment just to enjoy the music from their idols. Another related study about music listening as stress reliever, like I stated before in the empirical review, stated that music listening is one of the ways to impact health via stress reducing effects, and such findings can help to better explain the beneficial effects on the human body of music. It can be related to this research in where all of the participants found a way to relieve their stress during the COVID-19 pandemic by listening to music from their idols. And from the explanation above, it can be said that the result of the study titled The Effect on Music on the Human Stress Response still can be related to this research. However, the related study did not mention the influence of idols and their music in reducing the stress that experienced by the individuals in the COVID-19 pandemic. And now the last one, conclusion. So the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in damage to mental health as people begin to experience distress. So mental health, especially stress, become a major topic for research because almost all of people in this world are experiencing it ever since the pandemic has become worse. Thus, it is important for us to know what trigger the stress and how to manage stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. And from the research that was conducted, we can draw a conclusion that the triggers come from many factors. However, the three main factors for people around their 20s are pressure of college, the frustration of staying at home for too long, and personal problems, and the way people cope with their stress is different. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, the way people manage their stress is not so different from each other. And the study has found one similar way that needs to be highlighted, which is listening to music from their idols. It can be said that the role of idols in reducing the stress that's experienced by the individual during the COVID-19 pandemic is quite remarkable because idol act as a distraction from the stress that people experience, so idols become one of the motivation for them to continue their life in this difficult situation. And this research can be used as a references and can be developed on a wider scale by other writers with more comprehensive thoughts. Further studies need to be carried out because this research is very important to be understood during this COVID-19 pandemic, and the topic of how to manage stress become a major topic that needs to be researched, and there are not many studies that have been conducted about the influence of idols in reducing the stress from the COVID-19 pandemic, and why idols has become a global phenomenon. So that's all from me. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.